Welcome to this presentation on the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, commonly known as MLC 2006. MLC 2006 is often referred to as the fourth pillar of international maritime law, alongside SOLAS, MARPOL, and STCW. While SOLAS focuses on safety at sea, MARPOL focuses on pollution prevention, and STCW focuses on training and certification. MLC 2006 focuses on the welfare, rights, working conditions, and living conditions of seafarers. The convention entered into force on 20 August 2013 and established a comprehensive international framework to protect seafarers worldwide. Today, MLC 2006 serves as the International Bill of Rights for seafarers and applies to most commercial ships engaged in international trade.
This is part 1 of a 3-part MLC 2006 series. Make sure you subscribe because parts 2 and 3 will cover the sections most commonly asked in MEO Class 1 oral examinations. Before MLC 2006, maritime labor standards were spread across 37 separate ILO conventions and one protocol adopted between 1920 and 1996. This created several difficulties. There were too many conventions, making them difficult for governments to ratify and enforce effectively. Many conventions had become outdated because shipboard working and living conditions had changed significantly over time. Some conventions were poorly ratified, resulting in inconsistent implementation around the world. Another problem was that amendments were difficult and time-consuming. To solve these issues, the International Labour Organization consolidated all previous maritime labor conventions into one single convention, MLC 2006. The objectives were to provide comprehensive protection of seafarers' rights, create a level playing field for shipowners, improve living and working conditions on board ships, protect seafarers from unfair competition from substandard ships, and establish an instrument that could be updated more easily and enforced more effectively.
MLC 2006 consists of 3 main components: Articles, Regulations, and the Code. The Articles contain the core rights, principles, and obligations of member states. The Regulations establish the requirements that must be met. The Code contains detailed implementation provisions and is divided into Part A and Part B. Part A contains mandatory standards that must be complied with. Part B contains non-mandatory guidelines that assist administrations and shipowners in implementing the convention. An important feature of MLC 2006 is that the Code can be amended through a simplified procedure under Article 15, making it easier to keep the convention up to date. Another important concept is substantial equivalence under Article 6, which allows alternative national measures provided they achieve the same purpose as the convention requirements.
The regulations of MLC 2006 are organized into 5 titles. Title 1 covers the minimum requirements for seafarers to work on board ships. These include minimum age, medical fitness, training, qualifications, and recruitment and placement services. Title 2 covers conditions of employment, including the Seafarers Employment Agreement, wages, hours of work and rest, shore leave, repatriation, and manning levels. Title 3 focuses on accommodation, food, and catering arrangements on board. Title 4 deals with health protection, medical care, welfare, and social security protection. Title 5 establishes compliance and enforcement through flag state inspections, certification, port state control, and labor supplying state responsibilities. Together, these 5 titles cover the complete range of seafarers' rights and protections.
Before studying the detailed regulations, it is important to understand the role of the Articles in MLC 2006. The Articles establish the fundamental legal framework of the Convention. They define the rights of seafarers, the obligations of member states, enforcement responsibilities, and amendment procedures. The articles provide the legal foundation, while the regulations and code contain the detailed requirements that are implemented on board ships and by maritime administrations. Therefore, understanding the articles helps us understand the purpose and philosophy of the entire convention.
Article I deals with general obligations. It requires member states to give complete effect to the convention and cooperate with one another to ensure effective implementation and enforcement. The ultimate objective is to ensure that seafarers enjoy decent working and living conditions. Article 2 provides definitions and explains the scope of application. It defines important terms such as seafarer, ship, ship owner, competent authority, and recruitment and placement service. The convention applies to most commercial ships and seafarers, although certain categories, such as warships, are excluded. Article 3 establishes fundamental rights and principles. These include freedom of association, recognition of collective bargaining, elimination of forced labor, abolition of child labor, and elimination of discrimination in employment and occupation. Article 4 outlines employment and social rights. Every seafarer has the right to a safe and secure workplace, fair employment conditions, decent working and living conditions, health protection, medical care, welfare measures, and social protection.
Article 5 focuses on implementation and enforcement. Flag states must ensure that ships flying their flag comply with the convention. Ships must be inspected and certified where required. Port states are also permitted to inspect foreign ships visiting their ports. An important principle introduced here is the no more favorable treatment principle. This means ships from non-ratifying countries should not receive more favorable treatment than ships from countries that have ratified the convention. Article 6 explains the relationship between the articles, regulations, and code. It clarifies that Part A of the code contains mandatory standards and Part B contains non-mandatory guidelines. Article 7 requires consultation with shipowners and seafarers organizations whenever flexibility, exemptions, or implementation measures are considered. Article 8 establishes the conditions for entry into force. The convention required ratification by at least 30 member states representing at least 33% of the world's gross tonnage before it could enter into force.
Article 9 deals with denunciation, which means withdrawal from the convention. A member state may withdraw only after 10 years from the convention's entry into force and must provide 1 year's notice. Article 10 explains the effect of entry into force. MLC 2006 consolidated and updated numerous earlier maritime labor conventions and created one comprehensive international labor standard for seafarers. Article 11 describes the depository functions of the Director General of the International Labour Organization. The Director General records ratifications, acceptances, and denunciations, and notifies member states of these actions. Article 12 requires these records to be communicated to the United Nations for official registration under the UN Charter.
Article 13 establishes the Special Tripartite Committee. This committee consists of representatives from governments, shipowners, and seafarers. Its role is to continuously review the operation of MLC 2006 and consider implementation issues and possible amendments. Article 14 provides procedures for amending the articles and regulations. These amendments follow the constitutional procedures of the ILO. Article 15 establishes a simplified procedure for amending the code. This allows the convention to be updated more efficiently without reopening the entire convention. Article 16 specifies the authoritative languages of the convention. Both the English and French texts are equally authoritative and have equal legal status.
The Declaration of Maritime Labour Compliance, commonly known as the DMLC, is an important document under MLC 2006. It is important to remember that the DMLC is a document, not a certificate. The DMLC consists of 2 parts. DMLC Part 1 is prepared by the competent authority, usually the Flag State Administration. It identifies the national laws and requirements that implement the convention
and covers the 14 areas listed in Appendix A5I. DMLC Part 1 is issued by the Flag State Administration after the shipowner applies for it. DMLC Part 2 is prepared by the shipowner. It explains the measures adopted on board to ensure both initial and ongoing compliance with MLC requirements. It must be consistent with DMLC Part 1 and include procedures for continuous improvement. Part 2 is submitted to the administration for review and approval before the initial MLC inspection. Together, DMLC Part 1 and Part 2 form the basis for MLC certification and inspection.
Now, let us discuss the important MLC certificates and documents that must be carried on board ships. The first document is the Maritime Labour Certificate, commonly called the MLC certificate. This certificate is issued by the competent authority or a recognized organization authorized by the flag state. It is issued after a satisfactory inspection of the 14 areas listed in Appendix A5I of the Convention. The certificate is valid for a maximum period of 5 years. An important point to remember is that the DMLC Part 1 and DMLC Part 2 must always be attached to the Maritime Labour Certificate. The second document is the Interim Maritime Labour Certificate. This certificate is issued for a maximum period of 6 months only. It cannot be extended, and normally no subsequent interim certificate can be issued. Interim certificates may be issued when a new ship is delivered, when a ship changes flag, or when there is a new ship owner. Before an interim certificate is issued, the master must be familiar with the requirements of the Convention, and arrangements must be in place for compliance. The third important document is the Declaration of Maritime Labour Compliance, or DMLC. Remember that the DMLC is a document and not a certificate. It consists of Part 1 prepared by the competent authority and Part 2 prepared by the shipowner. The DMLC must always be available on board for inspection.
To verify compliance with MLC requirements, 4 different types of inspections are carried out. The first is the initial inspection. This inspection takes place before the first Maritime Labour Certificate is issued. The inspector must verify that the ship complies with MLC requirements and that the measures described in DMLC Part 2 have been effectively implemented for at least 1 month. The second is the intermediate inspection. This inspection is carried out between the 2nd and 3rd anniversary dates of the certificate. The purpose is to verify continued compliance. Inspectors check whether any amendments to the DMLC have been implemented and whether previous deficiencies have been corrected. The third is the renewal inspection. This inspection is conducted before the 5-year certificate expires. Its scope is similar to the initial inspection, and if satisfactory, a new Maritime Labour Certificate is issued. The fourth is the interim inspection. This applies to new ships, ships changing flag, or ships with a new ship owner. The interim certificate issued following this inspection is valid for a maximum of 6 months. No extension is permitted, and no subsequent interim certificate can normally be issued. The ship is inspected to the extent considered reasonable under the circumstances.
Before we move to Part 2, let's quickly recap. In this part, we learned why MLC 2006 was created, its structure, the articles, the 5 titles, DMLC, MLC certificates, and inspection requirements. These topics form the foundation of the entire convention and are frequently asked in MEO Class 1 oral examinations. In Part 2, we will study the practical requirements under Titles 1 to 4, including medical certificates, seafarers' employment agreements, wages, hours of work and rest, accommodation, medical care, and the important MLC amendments. If this lecture helped you, please support the channel by subscribing and pressing the notification bell so you don't miss Part 2. Also, write in the comments MLC Part 2 if you want the next part immediately. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lecture.